Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of How to Play Dungeons and Dragons number 3. In today's video, we are going to be going over what edition should you play. There's currently 6 editions of Dungeons and Dragons, so let's get over it. We're going to be covering a few today. Alright, so here are the games that we're going to be covering. The original Dungeons and Dragons White Box, Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition, D&D 3.5, D&D 4th Edition, D&D 5th Edition, and Dungeons & Dragons 5.5. We are also going to do a slight introduction to Pathfinder in this video at the very end. Alright, so why would you want to play a different edition, and why are there so many editions? So a new edition typically comes out around 8 to 15 years, and during the lifespan of the previous edition, there might be mechanics that are not in the core rulebook. There might be changes to classes published in a magazine or different book or something like that they just want to add into a new edition, along with if there is a common house rule that a lot of players have added to their game that has kind of became mainstream, they might add that into the new edition. Alright, so why wouldn't I just play the newest edition? Well, there are a lot of people within this community. This hobby has been around for several decades at this point, since the 70s, I'm pretty sure. And so there are a lot of older people within this hobby that would just want to play their preferred edition that they started off with. So that's why. Also, you might want to go back and use older random tables or older class abilities, or you might want to, let's say you find something that you really like in edition, for example, like me with the 4th edition Healing Surges. I really like that, and so I would take that and put that into my game, and so that's why you might want to play an older edition. Alright, first of all, the original Dungeons & Dragons White Box, released in 1974. I'm going to be honest, there's not going to be a lot of people playing this. I have never seen anyone ever want to play this. It's the original version of Dungeons & Dragons released by Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax was a war gamer at the time, and so he made and participated in a game known as Chainmail. So this white box set came with 3 different booklets that taught you the 3 classes at the time: Magic User, Fighting Man, and Cleric, along with how to run the game a little bit, some weapons, combat, all that stuff. The game, I think, only had about maybe 5 or 6 other releases other than the original white box. So it relies on a lot of character creativity and a lot of DM creativity. However, the cons is that it is a war game. They basically took Chainmail, where you control multiple soldiers, and they wanted you to play one soldier. Because of this, character death is really common. The Magic User, which would be the modern day equivalent to the Wizard, only had a D4 hit dice, meaning that you were getting an average of 2 hit points at level 1. Also, you just didn't have a lot of creativity whenever it comes to character creation. Alright, Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. I forgot to put the date, so I'm sorry. This is a version that was peaking off of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which would technically be like 1st edition. However, not a lot changed from the white box. We're not covering that here. This game was more, I guess, beneficial for players and DMs because it was more official at this point. Dungeons & Dragons had an actual publisher instead of just being typed up on a typewriter like previous editions were. So it made it very easy to not only play the game but find people to play with. It still works on a lot of the stuff that the original edition did, and it still is piggybacking off of 1st edition and the white box edition. However, it's a really fun way to play. You will find this semi-commonly, but you still have to go out of your way to find it. The pro, it has a lot of content. The con, unfortunately, it is intimidating for new players, and it is not recommended for new players, at least in my opinion. Alright, Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition slash 3.5 was released in 2000. 3rd edition followed up 2nd edition, and this is when Dungeons and Dragons was bought by Wizards of the Coast before it was being printed by a company known as TSR, which was Gary Gygax's company. So this is the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons where Gary Gygax didn't really have that much input. 3rd edition was eventually upgraded to 3.5 edition, fixing some minor stuff, all that stuff. This edition of D&D was really focused on making the game better for beginners and simplifying stuff. For example, it gave us the modern day armor class instead of using THAC0, and it gave us stuff like better spellcasting, all that sort of stuff. It also gave us better character creation. Pros, it had the most content out of any edition. 3.5, you can get lost in the books for hours. Not only the setting books, but the monster books, all that stuff. It also had a lot of extra classes. And then once the 3.5 upgrade happened to 3rd edition, a lot of people still play 3.5 to this day. Con, even though it was made for new players, because there's so much content, it is so intimidating to new players. And I understand this. However, a lot of modern day editions still use the template created by 3.5. Alright, now we get to the most controversial the most controversial edition of all. Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition. This succeeded on making Dungeons and Dragons accessible for beginners. However, it came at a cost. This was really when web-based platforms were getting really popular, and so the entire selling point of this edition was that it is going to be D&D of the future. There was a promised online character creator, which they did. There was going to be an online battle map, which they did. This was the first time that they sold books as PDFs, so all that stuff was very web-based. This entire edition was web-based in the early 2000s, so it didn't have a lot of backing to it like on that web-based stuff. And I think that's really why the edition failed, other than the mechanics. This game is basically World of Warcraft as a tabletop role-playing game. It kind of sucks, but however, there are mechanics that would eventually become more common. Pros, it's very beginner friendly. This book was made for beginners. However, con, it's very different than every other edition of D&D, and you will rarely find anyone playing this other than just a one-shot. Alright, the crown jewel of D&D, 5th edition. This is the version that most people are playing currently. At this time, we've had 5.5 for I think like 5 months or so. I'm not exactly sure, but normal 5th edition, this is what most people are going to be playing. It took a lot of concepts from 4th edition and basically paired them up with the 3.5 gameplay. This is the most modern version of D&D that is currently being played by most players. So while 4th edition was trying to become a web-based service, 5th edition was actually what did that. They started with programs like D&D Beyond, and they are making their own virtual map and tabletop. Along with, most of the rules are free to something called the System Reference Document. So a lot of classes, a lot of races, a lot of monsters, magic items, all that stuff is just straight up free. Con, official content is no longer being released. You can still buy the official content on D&D Beyond, however, they have switched over to supporting 5.5. Alright, 5.5. This is the newest edition of Dungeons & Dragons. I haven't played it yet, so I can't really talk on it much. I haven't seen anyone that has played it yet. So, this edition doesn't really have much information on it yet. It's supposed to be just 5th edition, just upgraded. So yeah, that's basically what it was. It's a half edition update. It's like I don't really know what to say about it. All right, this next one is a bonus update. Pathfinder. Pathfinder is not official D&D. It's not D&D at all. It's its own system, and it branched off from D&D. So a little bit of context. Paizo was a person, or was a company, that was releasing a magazine for Dungeons and Dragons back when 3rd edition was still being released. And so when Wizards of the Coast moved on to making 4th edition, and a lot of the community just straight up hated it, Paizo decided to make their own system that shared a lot of mechanics with 3rd edition, using the current open gaming license at the time, and so they released Pathfinder. Pathfinder is a role-playing game that is basically 3rd edition that is still getting updates. There are currently 2 editions of Pathfinder, 1st and 2nd edition, along with there being a 2nd remastered, which I play and it's pretty fun. Pathfinder it fixes a lot of the problems that people have with modern day D&D. However, it's not going to be a complete fix. Alright, thank you everyone for watching. Let me know what you would like to see in the future. Bye.